Hello guys, welcome to my page Scalpel Speaks. Today we'll discuss about different classifications used for groin hernias. Here is a representative image depicting inguinal ligament. It's extending from the anterior superior iliac spine. This is the anterior superior iliac spine to the pubic tubercle. Here we can see the superficial ring, and here you can make out the deep ring, and here are the inferior epigastric vessels. So any hernia which is occurring medial to the inferior epigastric vessels are termed medial hernias, otherwise called as the direct hernias. Any hernia which is occurring lateral to the inferior epigastric vessels or a lateral hernias or an indirect hernias. So here in this tabular column, I'm trying to depict all the three different type of classifications of hernia: the traditional classification, the modified Gilbert classification, and Schoen-Pollack or Achin classification in one single tabular column. Here, remember the dictum come from lateral to medial. Coming from lateral to medial, we can have an indirect small hernia, an indirect medium hernia, or indirect large hernia. Depending upon the fingers, it could be less than 1.5 centimeters, 1.5 to 3 centimeters, or more than 3 centimeters. Or it can be a direct large hernia, direct small hernia, a direct medium hernia, and a direct large hernia. Followed by a pantaloon hernia or a combined hernia. Eighth is a femoral hernia. Ninth is others, and 10th is a recurrent hernia. So now try to make it simpler by just giving the names. So in a traditional classification, indirect small hernias are given the name 1A, 1 indirect medium hernias are given the name 1B. Indirect large hernias are 1C. Direct small hernias are 2A. Medium hernias are 2B. And large hernias are 2C. Where the combined hernias are given the number 3. Where the femoral hernia is given the number 4. Others are depicted by O, and recurrent hernias are depicted by R. Coming to the Gilbert's classification, which is important, the indirect small hernias are depicted as number 1. The indirect medium hernias are depicted as number 2. The indirect large hernias are depicted as number 3. Here comes a small change. In Gilbert's classification, the direct large hernia is given the number 4, and the direct small hernia is given the number 5, and the direct medium hernia is not considered. The combined hernia is given the number 6, and the femoral hernia is given the number 7. Coming to Schoen-Pollack or Achen's classification, it is mainly based upon the defect size. Mainly based upon the defect size. So, since indirect hernia is a lateral hernia, it is given the name L1, L2, and L3. Same thing goes with the indirect hernia because it's a medial hernia M1, M2, and M3. And because it's combined hernia, it's given the term ML, and the femoral hernia is given the term F. So L1, as I said, it takes the defect size into consideration. So L1 is less than 1.5 centimeters. L2 is 1.5 to 3 centimeters, and L3 is more than 3 centimeters. Similar way, M1 is less than 1.5 centimeters, it is 1.5 to 3 centimeters, and it is more than 3 centimeters. So after covering all three important classifications, the one which must know is the Niehaus-Stoppa classification. Okay. In this classification, there are four types: type 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I have written the one similar to the indirect hernia so that you can remember. So one being the indirect hernia, the two is similar to when I also can be remembered as two. So the first two are the indirect hernias. The indirect hernias. What is the difference between them is the comment about the deep ring. The deep ring in one, the deep ring is normal. The deep ring is normal in case of type 1 IS hernia, where the deep ring will be dilated in case of a type 2 IS hernia. This is dilated. It is dilated. Okay. So coming to type 3 hernia, it is a posterior wall defect. The W here is in the form of 3. So you can remember it as a posterior wall defect. So in posterior wall defect also it can be a three types. It can be either a direct hernia. A is a direct hernia. Again, B is an indirect hernia. And C is a femoral hernia. So you might be thinking, what is the difference between type 1, type 2 Niehaus and type 3B Niehaus, where all three are indirect hernia? In type 1 Niehaus, the deep ring is normal. In type 2 hernia, the deep ring is dilated. In type 3B Niehaus hernia, we should concentrate on inferior epigastric vessels. The inferior epigastric vessels will be displaced. So if there's a displaced inferior epigastric vessel, it falls under type 3B Neha's classification. And coming to type 4. So type 4 is mainly like a recurrent hernia where it looks like an R. So it is not that useful, but for just remember that type 4 is a recurrent hernia, and it further is subdivided into four different types. Recurrent hernia, again it's the same thing: direct, recurrent direct hernia, recurrent indirect hernia, recurrent femoral hernia, and a combined hernia, a pantaloon. Both are direct and indirect, there's both direct and indirect component.